Akali's massive amount of mobility, invisibility, and damage make her almost impossible to deal with, but she's actually so easy to counter, we can give you everything you need to know in less than 5 minutes, so you never lose against Akali again. Akali's biggest weakness is that she's an energy champion, which is why, unsurprisingly, her entire kit revolves around her shroud. It increases her maximum energy and massively boosts her energy restoration, and because she's invisible, it makes trading easier for her at the same time as making it harder to trade back. In terms of hard counters, any ability that keeps her revealed during her shroud negates a lot of the advantage she gets from it. But you don't need to play a specific champion to play around it, because it also has an incredibly long cooldown early. If she uses it in lane, it's generally best to just walk away until it expires. If she can't use her E to get onto you, she loses almost all threat, and if she doesn't have the extra energy and restoration, her Q's massive energy cost means her trading window is extremely narrow. But that doesn't mean you should always trade into her when it's down. Pre-6, her lane strategy is to get you to waste your mana. Because she takes Doran's shield and second wind, she heals a lot of the poke you do back, and because she's an energy champion, she can just wait until you run out of mana and she has a free lane. So you generally want to hold fire until between levels 3 and 5 and just focus on farming in the meantime. Once you unlock your full kit or have some better base damages on your spells, her sustain strategy becomes less effective because the mana you use poking her down is more impactful. You might also be tempted to try and auto her down from range, but a lot of the time you're actually helping her out. Because her Q costs so much energy, her early game wave clear is god-awful. So unless you can consistently auto her, throwing a single attack and drawing minion aggro is only going to result in the minion wave pushing toward her and generally improving her farming. Plus, she'll just sustain that damage back anyway with her runes and items. TLDR, most of Akali's early game strength can be ignored by just ignoring her. Because she's so annoying to deal with at 6, you'll be tempted to try and poke her out and remove the all-in threat, but just waiting until you have some more strength in simple trades goes a long way to preventing that all-in later. Past laning phase, because Akali's mid to late game is heavily based on her mobility, the biggest hard counter to her is crowd control. Whilst the best champions at dealing with her are obviously those with point-and-click CC or anti-dash abilities, it still works the same way with normal CC, it's just going to take a bit more skill to pull off consistently. The trade-off she makes for her insanely mobile kit is that all of it is low range, which means she has to get very close to the carries to execute them, making CCing her much easier, which is why most Akalis focus on flanking their targets. But that is also really easy to counter. Marking is where you stand between a threatening enemy and your carry, and essentially all you have to do is mirror your opponent's movements, so you always stand right between them and the champion you're trying to protect. This is especially good against Akali because of her short range and targeted ult, but also because her E needs to go in a straight line to the enemy she's trying to hit. Technically anyone can do this, but supports are generally the best option for it because they mostly have the CC needed to lock her down and they're worth less in fights compared with the rest of the team. Marking an enemy is essentially a trade-off. One of your teammates is deliberately excluding themselves from the team fight, so the dangerous enemy flanker is also excluded. So body blocking a Fed Akali with a low econ support means most of the enemy team's damage is removed from play in exchange for very little of your team's damage. One quick indicator you can and should pay attention to in-game is whether or not she has Zhonya's. Because she is so heavily countered by CC, a lot of good Akalis will bait out your crowd control and then use Zhonya's to eliminate that counterplay. So whilst you're marking her, try to hold your CC until it's absolutely guaranteed to make sure she can't bamboozle you in the process. But by far the simplest way to counter flanks is literally with just 2 wards. Akali can only come at you from 4 different directions. If she comes from the front, that's no problem because hopefully you'll have a front line to hide behind, which means you only need to ward 2 of the 3 remaining directions. Since not being in the 2 you can see means she must be flanking you from the direction you can't see. And what makes this so easy is that all a carry needs to buy is 1 pink ward and a blue orb. The pink ward goes behind you so you can clear any wards she might want to TP flank on, and then use your blue orb from extreme range to cover one of the 2 remaining sides, which means you as a carry can always space away from her and supports can more easily mark her. So her flanking attempts literally put her team at a disadvantage. When it comes to who should do this, generally your support and jungler should be looking to place their wards and pinks more aggressively to prepare for the rest of the enemy team. And at the same time, your mid and top laners should be in lane pushing waves and generally need to use their wards to keep themselves safe from being flanked or ganked. Again, technically anyone can do this, to the point that if you don't have a second ward to place down, the support can sit on one of the sides to act as a ward, but because carries generally buy blue orbs anyway, are at the back of the team fight to begin with, and are the ones that need vision control the most, they should be the ones warding.